Welcome to Football's Golden Oldies from the Toll House in Lancaster. The great Charlie Buchan. Most of us would read Buchan's Football Monthly when we were young and mad about the game in the 50s and 60s. My front page of the February 64 edition, costing 2 shillings or 10 pence, featured the great James Peter Greaves. Page 30 gave us an update on Dave Mackay's broken leg, plus the English League tables and Division 1 and 2 in Scotland. Charlie Buchan transformed the game. Schoolmaster, footballer, soldier, writer, broadcaster, author and editor. Charles Murray Buchan lived a full and contented life simply because he was happy in his work. He made a notable contribution to the game he loved in all these various spheres because even as a soldier in World War I, he found time to brighten the lives of his comrades by organising football for them. One facet of his character and personality was his ceaseless encouragement of young players, or indeed of anyone in any capacity in whom he could detect an enthusiasm for the great game of soccer. He believed in the game and was never afraid of expressing his beliefs. Matt Busby, Stan Cullis, Tom Finney, Stan Matthews and Billy Walker were all friends and admirers of this great football player. An inside forward like Jimmy Greaves, Charlie has largely been forgotten, but here are a few statistics about him. He's at equal 6 on the all-time scorers list. The only one out of the 10 whose career was severely affected by a world war. He averaged 23 goals a season. Multiply that by the years he missed, 4, and that would give him 349. Astonishing, one place behind the prince of goal scorers, Jimmy Greaves. Back to the beginning. Charlie Buchan was born in Plumstead on September 22nd, 1891. He took a keen interest in football and was a fan of the local side, Woolwich Arsenal. He watched the players train but couldn't afford to pay the entrance fee to see games. Charlie remembers it well. As my pocket money was 1 penny and admission was 3 pennies, I had to wait outside the ground until 10 minutes from the end when the big gates were opened to let fans out, and I rushed in. When he was 17, Arsenal approached him and he played for the reserves and trained twice a week with the team. He played 3 more games, but when he provided a bill of 11 shillings for his travel costs, the club refused to pay, so Charlie walked out. Even as a teenager, he was never afraid to stand up against injustice. Charlie's league debut. For the rest of the 1909-10 season, Charlie played for Northfleet in the Kent League. First Division side Bury offered him wages of £3 a week. Sir Henry Norris, the chairman of Fulham, offered him 30 shillings a week, but Charlie insisted on £2 and accepted an offer of £3 a week from Leighton, who were in the Southern League. Leighton turned down an offer of £800 from Chelsea. In March 1911, Sunderland paid a record £1,200 for Buchan, beating the £1,000 paid by Middlesbrough for Alf Common in 1905. In his third game for the club against Notts County, Charlie faced Jack Montgomery, a burly left back. In the first few minutes, Charlie raced past him and passed to a teammate. Montgomery said to him, "Don't do that again, son." When Charlie repeated his trick later, Montgomery hit him with a shoulder charge, which left Charlie flat on his back, only a yard from the fencing surrounding the pitch. Charlie crept back onto the field to be told by Montgomery, "I told you not to do it again." The The 1912-13 season started badly, and by October, Sunderland were bottom of the First Division with 2 points from a possible 14. An improving team. How many Sunderland fans would know their club played in blue shirts? A quick look at the Sunderland strip, complete with cut-down cricket pads. By December 1912, Sunderland were challenging for the title with Buchan, George Holly and Jackie Mordew all scoring 12 goals each. The triumvirate of Frank Cuggy, right half, Jackie Mordew, outside right and Buchan, inside right, were sensational. Titanic battle with Aston Villa. January 1913 saw Sunderland beat Arsenal 4-1, Spurs 2-1, Chelsea 4-0, Middlesbrough 2-0 and Derby County 3-0, leaving Villa as lone challengers. On the way to the FA Cup final, they beat Manchester City 2-0, Swindon Town 4-2, Newcastle 3-0 and Burnley 3-2. The final was played in front of 121,000 at Crystal Palace against Aston Villa. Clem Stevenson of Villa had told Charlie during a break in the game that he dreamt that Aston Villa would win the game 1-0 with Tommy Barber scoring the header. And with 15 minutes remaining in the game, Charlie Wallace took a corner, but he scuffed the ball, which came into the penalty area at waist height. With the Sunderland defence expecting a high ball, Tommy Barber was able to ghost in from midfield and head the ball into the net. Clem's dream had come true. It was a rough final, with Charlie Thompson battling Villa's centre-forward Harry Hampton, leaving him prostrate more than once. Referee Albert Adams was banned for a month for failing to maintain order, and he never refereed in another professional game. Can Sunderland now win the league? 4 days later, Sunderland met Villa, who trailed them by 2 points with 3 games to play. Over 70,000 people saw Harold Hulse score for Aston Villa, but Sunderland fought back and Walter Tinsley equalised to earn them a 1-1 draw. Sunderland won the last 2 matches against Bolton Wanderers 4-1 and Bradford City 1-0 to win the championship by 4 points from Aston Villa. Buchan ended the season as top scorer with 32 goals in 46 games. World War I erupts. Charlie joined the Grenadier Guards and Sherwood Foresters and in 1916 was sent to the Western Front. He saw action at the Somme, Combray and Passchendaele, being promoted to sergeant, then captain, and was awarded the Military Medal on September 11, 1918 and promoted to second lieutenant. After the war, Charlie returned to teach at the Cowan Terrace School in Sunderland. At the end of the season, 1919-20, he gave up teaching and opened a sports outfitters business in Blandford Street, Sunderland. Charlie was a member of the Association Footballers Union and was very outspoken, calling for strike action against a proposal to reduce the minimum wage to £9 a week. Charlie's military medal. His unit was pinned down in battle, and in an effort to save his men, Captain Buchan stormed a German lookout post and took it. Buchan was bayoneted in the foot, but luckily the bayonet went straight through the gap between his toes. The fate of the German soldier is unknown. His commendation was made sure when, under enemy fire, he ran back to the mess tent to get his men food, as their rations had run out and they were starving. Buchan's military medal was gazetted on December 12, 1917, won at Cambrai, some 7 miles behind the Hindenburg line. In his autobiography, Charlie modestly makes little mention of his war record. The Germans suffered 50,000 casualties and and the British 45,000. Rebuilding the team. In both the 1921 and 22 seasons, Sunderland finished in 12th place. Manager Bob Kyle rebuilt the squad, and by 1923 Charlie was the only survivor from the championship team of 1913. Sunderland had a much better season and finished in second place, 6 points behind Liverpool. Charlie scored 32 goals, which were 42% of Sunderland's goals, which earned him the Golden Boot in the First Division, with Tommy Roberts of Preston North End in second place with 28 goals. International career. The First World War and Charlie being outspoken about the authorities didn't help him win England caps. His first international was in Belfast on February 15, 1913, where after the game he overheard a linesman talking to George Eliot, the Borough and England centre forward. Charlie objected to what he was saying and told him that he was a fool and didn't understand football. Unfortunately, he was a member of the FA selection committee. As a result of this conversation, Charlie was dropped from the team, which is not surprising because the FA selection committee were all amateurs. His expenses, including the match fee, return travel from Sunderland and meals, was £12, 19 shillings and 10 pence. The FA objected to his bill, and after strong arguments they handed Charlie 13 gold sovereigns and said, "Have you got the 2 pence change?" Even at the age of 34 he was wanted. Charlie played his final international game for England against Scotland on April 12, 1924. World War I, plus his conflict with those in authority, severely restricted his international appearances, although he scored 4 goals in 6 appearances. Charlie was dubbed the greatest player in England. In May 1925, Herbert Chapman visited Charlie at his sports outfitters shop and asked him if he was willing to be transferred to Arsenal. Buchan agreed, and after 2 months of hard negotiations, he joined the London club for £2,000 plus £100 for every goal. He scored 21 goals in his first season for Arsenal and therefore cost a total of £4,100, a bargain. Charlie's debut at home against Spurs. Under the terms of his transfer, Arsenal would pay Sunderland £100 for every Buchan goal. A home game against Tottenham seemed to be an opportune time for Charlie to strike. He was foiled by the king of soccer, who he never got the better of in his whole career. The man who marked Charlie out of the game was the incomparable Arthur Grimsdale. The King of Soccer. In a series of articles written in 1954, Charlie identified the greatest football player England ever produced. He was called the King of Soccer, and his name was Arthur Grimsdale, the great left half of Tottenham Hotspur. One of Arthur's most brilliant performances came during the 1920 International against Scotland at Hillsborough. Losing 4-2 at half-time, he inspired his team to a 5-4 victory. In one season he scored 14 goals, a record for a wing half at that time that might have been shattered by Duncan Edwards if he had lived. To confirm how highly Grimsdale was rated by Charlie, in a quote in 1955, Charlie said, "I'm really impressed with the young man at Manchester United, Duncan Edwards. If he continues to improve, he will rank alongside Arthur Grimsdale." Patience in season 1925-26. At their weekly players' meeting, Charlie tried to persuade Herbert Chapman to change Arsenal's tactics to take advantage of the new offside law. One of Chapman's great strengths was that he was always willing to listen to a well thought out idea or suggestion. In the next 7 games, Arsenal were undefeated, but without dominating games and opponents, winning 4 and drawing 3. Consequently, at the weekly meeting, Charlie's request to change tactics was always turned down by Herbert. Charlie's patience snapped. The 9th game of the season was on Saturday, October 3rd at Newcastle. In front of over 40,000 roaring fans, Arsenal were humiliated 7-0. After the game, Charlie spoke to Herbert Chapman and said, "I want to go back to Sunderland as I'm not much use to Arsenal." Herbert replied, "No, you're playing against West Ham on Monday night and we will have a special meeting to discuss it." The special meeting took place in their Newcastle hotel before they took the train back to London, and Chapman said to Charlie, "It's your plan, so tell us all the details and we will implement it." Charlie explained to Jack Butler what the centre-half's duties were, but the all-important link between defence and attack was a crucial part of the plan. Charlie thought he could fill that role, but Chapman said, "I need you up front scoring goals." So Charlie suggested an ageing Scot, Andy Neal, who could kill a ball instantly and pass it accurately. This was the role that the great Alex James would eventually fill with distinction, as Chapman brought in players to take the club forward. Did Charlie's plan succeed? Finally, after a lot of discussion, it was decided that Andy Neal, a reserve player, would be the first schemer-in-chief, and he made a very good job of it for the rest of the season. Thus, the Arsenal plan created by Charlie Buchan was brought into existence. It has been copied by most clubs, but many of them fail to carry it out successfully because the centre-half does not function properly. The centre-half, Jack Butler, should not just be a stopper, he must be the dominating player in his own penalty area and should feed the schemer-in-chief rather than simply clearing the ball up the field. Arsenal travelled to Upton Park to play West Ham United on Monday, October 5th, 1925, to unveil the Buchan strategy. In front of over 18,000 fans, Arsenal thrashed West Ham 4-0, with goals from Jimmy Brain 2 and Charlie Buchan 2. A summary of how the 1925 offside rule changed football. The change reduced the number of opposition players an attacker needed between himself and the goal line from 3 to 2. Charlie suggested to Herbert Chapman that Arsenal should create a new lineup from 2-3-5 to 3-3-4. 2 fullbacks and the centre-half would form the back line, with an inside forward, the schemer-in-chief, dropping back to link with the left half and right half. As a result of Buchan's idea, Arsenal finished in second place behind Huddersfield, who won their 3rd consecutive championship, inspired by the great Clem Stevens. Season 1926-27, Arsenal finished in 11th position in the league. They had a great cup run, beating Port Vale 1-0, Liverpool 2-0, Wolves 1-0 and Southampton 2-1 to reach the FA Cup final against Cardiff City, which was the first final to be broadcast on radio. A terrible error by goalkeeper Dan Lewis allowed Cardiff to score in the 73rd minute when he fumbled the ball, and in trying to retrieve it only succeeded in knocking it over his own line. The 1-0 victory meant that the FA Cup left England for the first time. Charlie was now approaching his 36th birthday, and after scoring 49 goals in 102 games, he decided to retire. What would the future hold for this great player? An all-time great. Charlie Buchan was an all-time Sunderland great, and perhaps in his time, the greatest striker England produced. He stood an impressive 6 foot tall and weighed just over 12 stone. An all-round sportsman who also played cricket for Kent. Charlie considered Sam Hardy, the far photograph of Aston Villa, the finest goalkeeper he ever played against, and left half Arthur Grimsdale of Tottenham as the only player he never got the better of. And in the photo you can see Arthur carrying the FA Cup on Tottenham High Road in 1921. A career in journalism beckons. Charlie was offered a job writing about football, the Daily Chronicle, and he also began making radio broadcasts for the BBC. In 1947, he helped establish the Football Writers Association, and one of the first decisions was to introduce an annual Footballer of the Year award. The first winner in 1948 was Stanley Matthews. In September 1951, he launched the highly successful Charles Buchan's Football Monthly. He published his autobiography, A Lifetime in Football, in 1955. Two household names with greatness in common. Charlie Buchan and Jack Hobbs of Surrey and England meet in the London restaurant of the Daily News, later the News Chronicle. Hobbs, who was 45 when the photo was taken, scored 98 centuries after he was 40. His 197th came when he was 51. Charlie Buchan worked for the News Chronicle until 1956. The death of Charlie Buchan. Charlie somehow lived to tell the tale of 3 ferocious battles on the Western Front, but eventually he succumbed to meet his maker on June 25th, 1960, in most unusual circumstances. Charlie and his wife went to Beaulieu-sur-Mer in the south of France as usual in June 1960. They stayed in the Metropole Hotel near the casino, drinking champagne at 11 o'clock every day. They would go to the races in the afternoon, and after dinner would go to the casino. On June 25th, 1960, Charlie had a considerable win at the casino, but subsequently suffered a heart attack and died. As he wasn't a Roman Catholic, they couldn't take him to the local chapel, so his body lay in the casino overnight. Next morning, when his wife returned to the casino, she was greeted by the sight of the coffin with a bottle of champagne and a vase of flowers from the casino manager. Members of his family flew from England to retrieve the body, but as there was an airstrike, they couldn't make the return trip. The saga of Charlie Buchan's death continues. The weather was scorching, so Charlie would have to be cremated, a very rare event in a Catholic country at that time. The problem was there was only one crematorium at Marseille, a long journey. A hearse arrived to take Buchan's body to Marseille, but bizarrely on the way, at 12 o'clock, the driver stopped at a restaurant for lunch, sampled a good wine, and 2 hours later, the journey continued. Following the cremation, the family returned to Beaulieu-sur-Mer and travelled back to England on a cargo plane with Charlie's ashes. His ashes were interred at Golders Green Cemetery, where they are in a niche in the hall on the north wall, number 5793. Charlie went out in style. befitting a truly great footballer. Buchan's entry in the Book of Remembrance reads simply, Charles Murray Buchan, 1960. God's finger touched him and he slept. Photo on the left is the Grand Hotel Metropole, and on the right, the casino. Tributes to Charlie Buchan. Matt Busby. Charles Buchan was a great player, and throughout the years I have obtained very sound advice from him. He will be greatly missed. Tom Finney. The Charlie Buchans of the game are not easily replaced, but I look back with great pleasure to my association with him. Stan Cullis. I was fortunate to be regarded as his personal friend, but Charlie Buchan will be remembered as a great footballer and a kind, sincere man. Stan Matthews. Many of us have good reason to thank him for his encouragement and advice over many years. The Times. The name of Charles Buchan is woven into the very fabric of the game the world over. His passing is yet one more sad link broken with a pass when Britain was acknowledged as the master of football, and Buchan in his time was an accepted master among masters. He battled all his life to improve the game. A Football Association in 1931-32. The names may have changed and the moustaches are no longer fashionable, but the absolute lack of knowledge in the Football Association has always held back football in England. Players like Buchan, Frank Barson, Billy Meredith, Len Shackleton, Wilf Mannion, Alf Ramsey and Brian Clough fought the FA and the Football League all their lives. The FA said at one point that they had lost the trust of the public, but I question whether they ever had that trust. Charlie Buchan, in retirement, was to become one of the best known names in sports journalism, replicating off the pitch his awesome skills on it. Onto a bonus slide to conclude the talk. Bonus slide, but where is Gordon Hodgson? We all read newspapers and hope they are at the very least accurate, but I'm afraid they are often found wanting, as this article in the Daily Mail by Ian Herbert, Jeff Powell, Ian Ladyman, Donny McKing and Peter Crouch illustrates. No mention of Gordon Hodgson, who was fourth on the list of goal scorers in the top division, with 233 goals in 358 appearances, including 17 hat-tricks, and his goals per game was 0.65, which is higher than Mo Salah. He played international football for South Africa and England, but of course he played from 1925 to 1936 for Liverpool, so journalists are not interested in that period of football.